when the pandemic hit, I just did not teach any during that time because I didn't want to risk bringing something home to my kids.
It completely annihilated all of what we do, because one of the appeals of spoken word and poetry slam is that live experience.
I work in the arts, in community speaking, and I was really excited because this was going to be a year where I had so many opportunities that were already stacking up. I have a memory of standing in my kitchen getting like the last email, and it was basically saying this has been canceled and we don't know when or if it will happen again. And at that point, like 100% of all of the opportunities for my career that I had were gone.
Only thing that continued was domestic violence cases. They would come into court and talk, I guess, with virtually in a safe room. The claimant and the defendant separately. So those were the only court cases. So everybody went home and they started doing everything virtual, right?
I saw a post for contact tracing. So I decided to apply for that position. So that was supposed to be 2 months. So we started in October 2020. But then we just got laid off when it was October 2022.
So I decided to leave my job. And then I decided to kind of build my confidence back up. And it wasn't that I was lacking confidence in my previous role, but it was more so because everything was so hectic and I couldn't hear my voice and I couldn't even hear my own thoughts because there was so much happening.
They initially were taking temperatures and we wore masks, et cetera, et cetera. After about a month, though, they stopped with the temperature check because people were coming in with no temperature, but yet they had COVID. So that was really kind of defeating the purpose.
Honestly, I've realized that when things happen, no one knows what they're doing, especially big corporation or big hospital and stuff. The information, it takes so long to get down to the lower level.
It was a moment in time, but the effects are lasting. They carry on past like to 2020 to 2023 or whatever.
We did a lot of pivoting, a lot of brainstorming about, how do you create a community event safely during COVID?
I probably was out more than I should have been during the pandemic. One of the things that was done was mask distribution during a time when people were like afraid.
We made a commitment here in the department that we weren't going to put anyone out of housing. If they found themselves in that situation, then we were going to find a way to be able to continue to work with that person and work with the housing owner and stuff to make sure that everybody kept a roof over their head.
There's this fear of losing our humanity was greater than any pandemic.
Each of us take at one point in time we had 10 different elderly that we visit. So we would cook and we meet up and then we pack the food and each of us take it to one person. And then what we did was we drag all of our kids along so they can see that when tough time like this, we need to come together.
This whole library were the people that I confided in. The people here are very, very, very nice.
The women brought their sewing machines and material, and we just had a day of making masks.
And starting on Thanksgiving Day of 2020, I drove around to all of the nursing homes, rehabs. I found out when the nurses got off at the hospital, when their shift changed around 3 o'clock. I parked in the parking lot and I just gave them out to people because everybody deserved a smile and everybody deserved. The saying thank you to our heroes wasn't enough.
I had an elderly neighbor who did have COVID, and I checked on her, and I reached out to some other neighbors, and we made sure she was all right. That's the kind of world we want to go back to.
You really don't realize how much a role you play in the community until it comes from others.
When COVID hit, I was already licensed as an insurance agent, and I thrived during COVID. That was like honestly my time to shine.
Like in hindsight, that time frame really helped me to see just how strong our marriage was. Because I don't have too many moments that I can look back on and be like, it was touch and go for a minute there. Like, we were chilling.
It slowed down, and it makes you reflect on so many things. Like for me, I reflect on going back to my religion, like going back to my Buddha.
We kept a prayer call every Wednesday, and we kept in touch with the Zooms and the Facebook Lives when they were transmitting the service on Sundays.
A lot of African Americans and males were seeking services, which 3 years ago, no. And what's even more ironic, a lot of African Americans, we don't really believe that. We needed the mental health piece. Yeah. And now since COVID, it's created a whole different alliance for us.
So as a freshman, my GPA was actually like a 3.8, which was the best GPA I ever had in life. But it was because there was no distraction.
I think one of the great things that came out of COVID is, even state and tribal leadership were meeting, and discussing things that were happening, especially virtually. Yeah. So technology definitely helped tribal communities.
Didn't know anything about 401k, and that provided me a lot of research to do stuff on it. So that was a lot. I gave all that to COVID because I don't think I had that time to do it without it.
The biggest thing I noticed was it was much easier for me to find the things I was looking for because everything was so desolate. Oh, that's interesting. No one was there. So I was always able to get in or go do what I wanted to do or needed to do without impairment, so to speak.
When that pandemic came, you saw people stick together. It didn't matter where you were from, what color you were, what you call yourself or what have you like that, but people stuck together because we had one common cause, and that was for us to stay safe.
At the very beginning, my first students were first grade, very early elementary, and they were hearing about COVID, and they were wanting to know what it was about.
When it first hit, we would have like 2 or 3 kids in the classroom, which I started out with 18.
So we were thankful that our parents responded. They were willing to be their children's teacher at home.
My daughter was doing virtual learning, and so she had to struggle with me physically being in a space but not being available to her.
Plus, these kids now are different, Technology keeps them together, unlike us going to school.
When I think of COVID-19, I just think of online school, which I wasn't a fan of. I hated it.
Before I knew it, I was walking across my school parking lot for graduation. Then after that, I was starting school online for college. I came to a school that I'd never been to. I never got to tour it because of the pandemic, so I just started straight off of faith.
Everyone was looking at you, and then they were especially looking at their teachers, in my experience, to manifest the same outcomes.
I've said this a lot of times. If I didn't have children, I would have quit that year. The only thing that kept me in that job is because at that school was because I had kids and I'm trying to buy a house.
The death of George Floyd, the city of Charlotte was no different than other major cities throughout the country who saw the tape and witnessed what I believe then was a public execution of this man. And The city of Charlotte reacted through protests.
My company, we produced a storytelling production that was virtual. That was it was difficult for a lot of people, but it was stories that were from people from within this community, mostly, who let me interview them about like the impact of like whiteness as an entity on like uh in our communities and what that looks like. I had folks share stories with me that I think they probably would not have otherwise told about like their childhood and things of that nature.
I had bottled up feelings. I had feelings of anger, especially during George Floyd. Just every time they would show the video of what was done to him, it would just make you feel angry inside, and you could just feel. I could feel like his last breath leaving his body when he kept asking them to stop, that he couldn't breathe. That really did. That I felt hurt. I really did.
Sometimes it was just like, I don't think we should, or I'm not sure if you're welcomed, or just kind of small things like that.
The counter protesters threw bottles at us and had AR-15s, and they were like marching down the side of the street with the AR-15s, and there was only like 2 or 3 people who had those, so it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to be very frightening. They called us the N-word and called us N-word lovers, and they said they should have called the Klan on us.
Some people just treat me so like cold or so negative. Before I may think about maybe they're just random people who happen to be like that, but now I'm thinking about maybe he or she is doing that because of like I'm Asian or especially Chinese.
It was really crucial for me during the pandemic to really understand what my identities were and how they intersected, and how I could begin to advocate and fight for what I needed as an individual to be successful in our society.
So this COVID thing was serious business for me.
Yeah.
Very serious. I've watched a lot of people die, right? Lonely, alone. I watched a lot of people die alone.
Have spent the majority, if not all of the lockdown time on my own. So that took a lot to get used to.
When I stayed in my apartment in DC alone for 2 weeks, I could see how I am an extremely strong extrovert. So I could see how I was getting very frustrated and worried and anxious.
With the pandemic and everyone wearing masks, I couldn't read lips anymore. And then the sounds of their voices were further hindered by the mask obstructing it. So I could hear even less, and I couldn't read their lips. So it was a bit of a struggle.
But the loss that I have experienced during COVID has been more devastating than loss pre-COVID because of the isolation.
And the idea of not seeing my mom for longer than a certain amount of time started to make me, I went into like a small panic mode. I don't even think she knows that.
I felt alone. I felt isolated.
I am a social butterfly. You know, butterflies fly, they transition, they go through change, they represent so much. So that was almost like taking me and putting me in a jar and closing the lid.
And then when I was pregnant, when COVID happened, they weren't even sure pregnancy was a high risk factor for COVID or not.
So when the pandemic hit, I just did not teach any during that time because I didn't want to risk bringing something home to my kids.
I actually had my village, which is my family. My mom took my kids for that year. They wasn't in school. So I was able to work. But then again, like I said, they still worried about me working in a cold house.
And then that night, what I did was I packed up all my kids. I took them to my sister's house. We slept over there. We spent the night there. And in the morning, I left them there so that she can help take care of my kid along with her 3 kids. And then I went to work. And then when I went, I think that was the day I thought, I was like, I cannot live like this. This is too stressful for me.
I will say during COVID, I was probably a lot more kind of
I was a lot more loose with video gaming and stuff during COVID than I usually am, because I was like, that's kind of like, that's an outlet for, him to stay connected to his friends.
So in the beginning, when we didn't have a lot of treatment for COVID, it was kind of like, I'm sorry to have to tell you bad news, but we ran your tests and you're positive for COVID-19. Go home, rest, drink water. If you feel like you're getting short of breath, go to the hospital. That was all I could kind of do.
I think a lot of people were afraid, and we were afraid because there were things we didn't know. And I think, anxiety was really high.
Even at that time, you were hearing a lot of rumors of what this disease would do, how fast it spread, how it spread.
Then I remember Twitter had a feature where it was showing you the metrics, and it felt like every day it doubled. Like it went from tens to hundreds to thousands.
I remember talking to my mom on the phone, and I started crying and she was like, well, talk to me about why you're upset. And I said, what if I have given this to someone else?
It's changed me because I'm not around people as much. I'm mainly with my family, and I'm home, and when I go out, I get my mission accomplished and I'm back home. A friend of mine was wanting me to go out with her and go see a local artist down at the one of the theaters, and I was like, too many people.
But I think because so many people have gotten through, have had it twice. Some people 3 times I know have had COVID. There's some cynicism about those of us who continue to want to be very cautious.
So, as soon as someone got like a cold, we were like, oh, I hope this is not COVID. And, just concerned and worried all the time.
But it was tough because you had to make an income. So you kind of jeopardize your morals a little bit and allow them to come into the space because you needed that.
So in this particular community, I don't have a right to tell somebody who's in poverty that they don't have a reason to fear. Because in reality, well, history has shown us, you got a reason to fear.
I believe they won't trust the government to tell them the truth when stuff happens because of so many inconsistencies at the beginning. And when the government can't get it right, they really don't know which way to turn.
So then you're trying to tell Native Americans that you made walk the Trail of Tears. Now trust me with this needle,
And for those who didn't want to take the vaccine, we pray for those guys because it's living proof that this COVID is real. Yeah. And if we can give you an opportunity or an option to at least curb it, I think people should consider.
I thank God for the doctors and staff at HM Health. Yeah. Because they really educating a lot of people why it's important in the LGBT community to get tested, to get vaccinated. Because if you don't, you're just asking to write a death sentence for yourself.
So we had a challenge of, communicating that to people that, it's not for you, it's for your family. And that's a hard message to get across to folks that have been disenfranchised and looked down upon and spit on and all that kind of stuff.
It was a lot of FaceTime, a lot of text messages.
I think I learned better virtually during the pandemic than when we came back.
So I was watching YouTube. The channel's called Brave Wilderness, but the guy who hosts it is Coyote Peterson.
I know it sounds crazy, but something about those videos, it just got me through. I would say TikTok, face masks and doing nails. I really got into doing nails.
Next person, Dante Etheridge, also known as I'm Dante.
I'm watching a lot of TikTok. I even joined, I can't remember what it was called, but I joined a networking group where they were doing panels and stuff via an app each night, and I would just join that.
Gideon Adams, also known as Gideon. He's also a YouTuber. He's also a guy who is not afraid to do whatever he wants when he wants to.
TikTok is at the big that I discovered TikTok around that time, and it was helpful. I mean, it created like a global community.
Go sit in her car too.
Next person, Montero Hill, Lil Nas X. That's controversial to say.
But I did have communicators like tablet, laptop, and a desktop. I thank God for those machines.
Yeah.
Because if I couldn't have neither one of those, I think I don't know what I would have done.